what I was missing was understanding my relationship to intensity. And rightfully so, because when you're born and raised as an athlete, it's all no pain, no gain.
Yeah.
When you're in pain and you feel something really big, you're looking for something really intense to meet that internal signal. My movement practice now is understanding the spectrum of intensity. You don't have to meet everything with force and power. There are other ways to meet your body, like learning how to breathe and get things to relax, putting your body in positions that relax muscular imbalance. Like when I now go for long runs, understanding what I can do to relax maybe a stride imbalance or how I was landing harder on my right leg. It's putting my body in positions and just allowing the nervous system to just downregulate and relax. I had spent so much time learning how to put work in the body and getting nowhere that I now focus on how to take work out, and that helps me go now do the hard things. So my movement practice every day is just learning, do I need to dial in, put more intensity in, or do I need to take it out? And as I've now gotten into the world of ultra running, that running this far and this long, it checks the box for intensity. Of course, weightlifting, doing cross training is really great for that. But I find the most value in, at the end of the day, learning how to unwind it so I can feel human again the next day and go do the same thing again and again and again. So I am primarily focused on nervous system resets and how do you downregulate the system? How do you calm down symptoms and just begin to activate this parasympathetic, lowered heart rate, lowered blood pressure, and help your body actually heal.
I love that. And I feel like that's something not a lot of people talk about. Especially in the fitness space, on Instagram, it's all about like, the no pain, no gain mindset of like, you got to be out there hustling and grinding and, hitting PRs in your lifts and all this stuff. And it's like, if you're just go all the time and you never take the time to actually recover and unwind, it's like, you're going to inevitably get hurt or cause some long-term thing. So what is like, I guess, what does that look like for you on a daily basis? How do you do that unwinding?
Yeah. So step one, man, is, and of course it makes sense when I say it, but actually putting into practice, this is the hard part because we all have such limited amount of time. We want to go do the most effective thing. Before I do any body work, there is a 5 to 10 minute calibration period. And it could be as simple as lying on your back with both legs over a chair, right? Both hips and knees at 90 degrees. Your arms are by your head and there's no movement. If we're trying to do any body work, most people get straight to the deep mobility stuff, the stuff where they feel sensations happening. And that can make it feel very effective, but we're doing that work with the body that we're trying to change, meaning we're doing that work with the problem itself. And most mobility flows actually just make the problem more mobile. It doesn't actually resolve the problem. So step one of my self-care routine is to just actually stop moving, put the right side and the left side of the body in the same position at the same time, and allow things to settle and relax. So that way, when I then go do any movement, I've got better access to both sides. And I'm not coming in with my right side more tense or my left side a little bit more relaxed. I'm bringing the body into a mobility routine with the highest chance of both sides working better together as possible. And the hard part about this is slowing down. It's not sexy to lay on your back. How many, people are you going to inspire when you take videos of yourself doing nothing? But that's where the magic is. And it's getting back in your body. It's just checking what's going on, literally head to toe. Where am I feeling tension? What's feeling tight? What's feeling achy? Learning how to breathe motion into these spots and then going to go do your motion routine, whether it's high intensity or it's just gentle, simple, subtle stuff. It's our point of entry that really, really matters on this stuff.
Yeah, sounds almost like a meditation too, to where not only are you getting your body kind of reset a little bit, but your mind. And so much of this stuff, running, strength training, all that is so dependent on the nervous system. And if that's not in balance, or if something, is not the way it should be, it's even within the nervous system, something that you might not physically be able to see, it's going to cause some other thing, right?
It's not a matter of if it will, it's a matter of like how it is and what it's doing. So we're all trying to perform, right? We want to feel better. We want to move better. We want to look better. Well, this requires our nervous system to do so. And how our nervous system engages critically matters. And if we are only engaging it and we're never allowing it to rest and relax, and I'm not talking about on a couch, right? I'm not talking about reading a book or watching your favorite show. I'm talking about really intelligent relaxing that allows both sides of your body to receive the same stimulus, because most people's don't. Most people's, for example, like in a strength routine, they might always start lunges with their right leg first. They might always do box steps and stepping down with their right leg. We're treating our nervous system not the same on both sides of our body. So most people have the experience of mileage getting higher, weights getting heavier, and their body needing longer and longer of their time to recover. That's not just because the work is hard, but because we are stressing this nervous system dysfunction. We are no longer properly recruiting these muscles simultaneously on both sides of our body. We start using one side more. This is why one joint starts to hurt more, even though the same body is doing the same mileage, the same body is lifting the same weights. One side of our body starts to break down more than the other. We have asymmetrical joint pain. One hip gets tighter, one side of our neck or lower back or shoulder. All of these little early on warning signs that our nervous system has lost regulation, and we push until we just push ourselves into our next injury. So the work that I do is just hitting the pause button on pushing just for a moment and beginning to restore that neuromuscular communication. So when it comes time to move, the body you're bringing into that activity, you can actually elicit better function on both sides.
So in addition to the lay on your back, hips, knees, ankles at 90 degrees, what else do you do?
Yeah, so so again, lying on my back, reducing compensation. I'll then lift one leg off the ground and I'll communicate with my right foot, and I'll do clockwise circles for a minute, and then I'll do counterclockwise circles. So it's almost like a checklist of, okay, foot, can you move by yourself? Yes, great. Then I'll do an exercise for my knees, whether it's like a simple knee extension, leg raise on my back. Can my right leg work? Great. Now let me do it with my left leg. So it's a very simple checklist. It's almost like a movement hygiene. Ankle, can you work today? Knee, hip, great. Left side, ankle, knee, hip, great. Now, can they both move and do these simple things together? And I'd love to make this real for anybody. I've got so many free exercises on my page where I show these little simple functional things. It's putting the body in positions where you're not going to go compromise your movement. So most people get right into mobility work, which is like multiple joints and muscle groups working together. The start of mobility work is first, let's make sure the ankle can be an ankle when it comes time to move. Is there any irregularities there that we can work on? What about the knee? What about the hip? So it's almost isolating motion temporarily as step one to make sure that things can work when you need them to. And then the next move is to build in more motion. So now it's compound motion. Now it could be something as simple as bridges, right? Let's first make sure the right hip can work. Then let's make sure the left hip can work. And then let's bridge and get both hips to work together. And it's not hard, it's not intense, it's just neuromuscular communication. So then when it comes time to run, the right leg can do its job, the left leg can do its job, and the only thing left for you to do is just put in the work. And both sides are capable of receiving force about the same. So step one, it's relaxing. Step two, it's just doing a little bit of a movement hygiene checklist, making sure things have some really good motion, and then it's integrating motion and then doing the damn activity. And you can get that done in like 15 to 25 minutes. It's not long and exhaustive. And your ability to then show up the next day and do it again and again, this is where the magic happens.
Is this something you do every day or every day before you train at least?
I used to be really religious about it. I used to do it every single day. My movement practice was unwavering. And what I've found is that I can probably get away with doing it every other day now, every maybe third day. So it's now no longer something I do every single day. I've improved function enough to where I can just go out there and run. There isn't some long, exhaustive warm-up routine. My body is movement ready. So if you were to say right now, let's just go on a run, we can go do that because all of the soft tissue structures work really well. Depending on the volume and the load of training. So when I've got very high mileage, when I start to go above 50 miles a week, that's when I notice I need to start doing it daily. I need that daily, hey muscles, here's how you guys work. and this is how you need to support me. Without it, it's like without a system of checks and balances, and then things start to feel really funky. And I notice like bending forward starts to feel stiff. I notice putting on my running shoes gets a little harder than it needs to be.
Yeah. So you mentioned doing like ankle, what is the right word? Ankle rolls?
Yeah. So circular ankle motions is one of them.
And then anything else you do for ankles?
Yeah, really basic. So rocking chair. So imagine you're like lying on your back, or actually anybody listening to this, I want them to sit in a chair, sit upright in the chair, put a yoga block or a pillow or a foam roller, put something between your knees. You're going to hold on to that object between your knees. So actively squeeze it with your inner thigh, your groin. And all I want you to do is lift up the front of your foot. So dorsiflex, hold for a second or two, and then gently roll the foot down and then lift the heel. Hold it for a second or two. And you're just rocking back and forth. And what you're doing is you're practicing the weight transfer when you're moving. You're getting your toes and your ankles and all of these stabilizing muscles in the ankle, knee, and the hip to just fluidly work together. And it's like 2 or 3 minutes of that. Again, it's that movement hygiene checklist. And you're doing that with the ankles. And then you can do a really simple hip rotation exercise to make sure right hip and left hip, these guys can synchronize and rotate together. A lot of people might call that a 90-90. I teach it when you're lying on your back and you just kind of windshield wiper and you go, it's not fast mobility. It's let's get both hips and pelvic joints to synchronize together. So you're teaching your weight, you're teaching your feet how to move your weight forward. You're then teaching your hips to rotate. And this is all of what we need to walk and run, our two most primary forms of locomotion. So you're almost practicing these movement patterns that are going to show up in the real world. So before long runs, I'll go do that. After long runs, I'll take a couple minutes and make sure that I can still do that function. Because if you just go stress the hell out of your body on a run and then you stop, maybe you cool down your heart rate. If you don't also cool down that physiological neuromuscular tension, this is why we hold on to tension the next day, why we feel a little stiffer and more tight on our run the next day. Yeah, it's because the muscles were worked. Of course, there's fatigue. Maybe there might be a little damage there. But if we don't practice that range of motion daily, we lose that range of motion daily. And the moment I see mileage start to increase, that's where people really start to sideline the important mobility stuff. And it all becomes so focused on mileage.
That's the tricky thing is like, the more time you spend running, the less time you usually have to do this. And that's when it becomes even more important. So it's like this weird kind of situation where it's like you're spending more time running, but that's again, when you need it the most. So I guess as somebody, I'm sure a lot of people listening to this are busy. They have kids or families and jobs and stuff. Like what advice would you maybe have to somebody if, okay, they're running 60, 70 miles a week or they're running a lot? How do you implement something like this if you don't have, an extra 30 to 45 minutes a day to do something like that?
Yeah, so you really got a great question. You got to take a step back and look at where do I want to be at in a year from now? If we look at the trajectory of most people's movement practice or mobility practice, it typically follows this journey. When you don't know how to take care of yourself, when you don't understand movement and mobility work, the very first step is, you having to carve out a specific time of day to take care of your body. And that's the hardest part, is going from nothing to something, especially when you're very jam-packed for time. But that's not a forever thing. When you start to understand how to properly move and the exercises and the stimulus and the movements that you need to take care of your body, instead of having this extra time that you have to carve out daily, you begin to integrate movement more intelligently throughout your day. So now you don't have to stop being a father. You don't have to stop being a business person. You don't have to stop doing the things that you're doing. You're just slowly integrating motion. Like I already have practiced those ankle motions a couple times, and it's not too much effort. We're doing two things. We're having a great conversation, we're connecting, and I'm just getting a little bit of motion in my foot. Whereas somebody without that, it would just sit still, right? And we wouldn't move at all until it comes time for that only time that I've got carved out for my day. So you've got to understand that your movement practice now is not going to be your movement practice in a year. as you evolve, the end goal is for you not to master a 30-minute routine every day. The end goal is for you as a human being to not have a mobility routine. It is to just move more intelligently throughout the day. Our ancestors did not have a mobility routine before they went to go hunt. There was movement throughout the day that regulated their body, and that's where our body best thrives. We can't just move for 30 minutes a day and expect that to accommodate the other 23 and a half hours. But until we get there, we have to start off with short, simple, easy, attainable steps. You can't go from not being a runner to being an ultra runner without first figuring out, how can I run a quarter of a mile without dying? And then a half a mile, and start from there. So one of the things that I teach people, those who are really struggling for time, is give me 15 minutes a day. If you're pressed for time, I know that's a lot, and I can't make that decision for you. 15 minutes is worth it. But if you can make 15 minutes, I'll show you the first step. I'll give you a couple exercises that you can start doing every day. And it's really cool because as you start to move and feel better, you start to want to make more time for that, because you realize, oh, I'm more present as a spouse. I'm more present as a person trying to run a career and build something because I feel better in my body. We first have to get a couple great wins, which is just you saying yes to a few exercises a day. It doesn't need to be some big, long, drawn out, hour-long thing. We can actually make some incredible improvements in a short time, but that's where we have to start. And it's not going to be that way forever. When we start to move and feel better, I'll show you more of what to do. And then I'll show you how to integrate this stuff into your life.
That's great. That was a perfect answer.
Hell yeah, we're getting perfect answers
dude,
here.
I mean, that's great because it's, I mean, I think people, it comes down to priorities, right?
Yeah.
Like, how important is it to you to like feel good and perform well in if you're training for a marathon or whatever you're doing? And if it really is important, like, I think everybody has 15 minutes.
Yeah.
It's like, how many episodes of Netflix are you watching every night? Or how many hours are you spending scrolling through Instagram every
look
day?
at your screen time. You'll figure out really quickly.
Yeah.
And I also really want to be fair to the people out there. I didn't care about movement until I couldn't. And that's most people.
Yeah.
Most people will not make time for their body and prioritize ankle movement and hip rotation until now their body is preventing them from doing the things that they love. And even then will begrudgingly start to do self-care practices. So today, if you look at today, it's probably a really hard thing to find value in. But if you start looking out, if I feel the way I do now, well, knowing that the body doesn't usually feel better with age, right? We lose 1% of range of motion. We lose 1% of strength per year past the age of 25. Project it out for a second. How do you think you're going to feel in 5 years and 10 years? Do you want to be that parent that is able to play with your kids as long as possible? Do you want to be the parent that can walk your child down the aisle? Like, you've got to think about big picture. What do you want to do? Because most people, unless you're maybe like a freak like you and I, is excited to go do our movement routine today. You've got to find out, what do you value? And it's not that mobility is valuable. It's what it allows you to go do. And if that's what you can keep front and center, it is so much easier to say, I'm going to turn on Netflix while I do my thing. You know what? I can go stalk my ex while I'm doing my mobility routine. You can do all these things together.
Yeah.
It's not that complicated. It just has to matter to you. And until it does, there is no magic exercise I could ever give you that's going to make the real difference that you want to make.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an important point. And I think most people know what it takes. I think most people know that McDonald's probably isn't good for them, but it's the easier thing to do. It's a more convenient thing to do. It's easier to not do a mobility exercise, to not do a routine until you have to, because you have an injury or you push too far, and now you are forced to do it, basically.
Yeah.
That's the sad part, is for whatever reason, I think most humans are wired that way. Is you wait until it's a necessity until you actually do it. Being proactive is not easy.